Okay, I want to remind you that the nation state is not and nationalism is not the way human society has been organized from the beginning. Preceding this, human society was organized in the Western world around the church, the Catholic Church, which was undivided up until the Protestant Reformation, which laid the groundwork for the rise of nationalism. Catholicism, the unified church, failed for a reason. And that was what led to the rise of nationalism, is that it became utterly corrupt. The worst voluptuaries were the priests and the bishops. Popes had wives, they had concubines, the church ran brothels, and it was because they had built up this institution, and the institution felt unassailable, and so there was no restriction. Human depravity just manipulated the church and it fell. The church fell of its own corrupt weight. Well, nationalism is at that point right now, and I'm just going to give a few small examples involving the country of Turkey and two what I consider morally founded countries, which would be the State of Israel and the United States. But look at the what we tolerate for the sake of power politics with Turkey. Israel does not recognize the Armenian genocide. Israel does not recognize the Armenian genocide because they want to have a friend in the region, so they excuse it, pretend it didn't happen, and the Turkish people, the Turkish government, has never apologized for that genocide. And you sit there and wonder, how can my people, the Jewish people, excuse, it's not the Native Americans who were victims of genocide, and the Armenians, they marched 500,000 of them out into the desert to die. They butchered them along the way. It was genocide. Just because they didn't get loaded up on trains. Well, actually, they did get loaded up on trains and driven out to the end of the line and kicked off the trains to die in the desert. So the end point wasn't a crematorium, but it was still genocide. For Israel to excuse that for the sake of regional power politics is a high point in corruption, in moral degradation. And that's one instance. Also involving us presently with Turkey. We, through this, and I admit it's through a mentally diseased degenerate in the White House, a person of absolutely no moral character, excuse the execution, the brutal dismemberment of a Saudi journalist because they want to kiss butt with the Saudi Arabia, in other words, the oil, and having a friend in the region, so we excuse this crime. Then that crime gets doubled by, so the Turks have got something on the Saudis. They've got all the evidence. What can we do to make the Turks go easy on the Saudis? Why don't we capture the cleric who Erdogan blames for everything that's gone wrong in Turkey, a guy living in exile in Pennsylvania? So Trump wants to get, and that whole right-wing nutjob crowd wants to kidnap him, export him to Turkey, where he will be executed, probably very much in the same manner as Khashoggi. So there you have moral I can't think of a better word than corruption. Just it's just extreme. Okay. All that is excused, and those are just a few examples involving Turkey that show the moral decay, the moral degradation of the kind of nationalism, the balancing of national power, and it's just reached the point where there's the whole system is morally corrupt. You have, and then what you also have going on is on both sides of the Atlantic, white people who identify themselves as white, are asking themselves the following question: if democracy means sharing power with all those little brown people around the world, do we want it? And many of them, the Trump people here, the Brexit people in Britain, the Marine Le Pen people in France, the neo-Nazis in Germany, all are saying, no, we don't. If that means, if it means sharing power with the little brown people, we don't want it. And so their patron saint is Saint Vladimir in the Kremlin, Putin. They are Putinistas. It's astonishing one of the things that has come to my mind recently is that Putin must keep delivering, because there has to be within the Kremlin some resistance to the idea that this guy is encouraging neo-Nazis in Germany. They are the allies to this plan. There must be somebody in the Kremlin saying those are the spiritual descendants of the people who butchered 20 million Russians during World War II. Astonishing. So on the Russian side, you talk about moral decay. There it is. And but the world that he's pushing for, that he is winning right now, is not a democratic world. It is not pluralistic. It is racist. It is it's a dead end. It's a dead end. Nationalism, as represented by Putin and all the people going along with him right now, is a dead end. Inevitably, there must be, and the forces of freedom, the people that aspire to liberty, to all that's made life worthwhile, the arts, the humanities, just capitalism, political liberty, economic liberty, all of those things, everything that sprang forth from the Renaissance, is at risk right now, and must find an outlet in something new, and that is an elected representative and sovereign United Nations. All of us should have a shirt like this. This is my DNA pie chart. It tells who I am, okay? I'm 46 or 47% Ashkenazi. This big piece here. British. Central, Western European. French, German. Scandinavian piece. An Eastern European piece. And this little tiny sliver here is Yakut. I have an ancestor somewhere 20,000 years ago in Siberia, a Yakut Eskimo. Humanity must make this transition to an elected representative and sovereign United Nations, because we are not meant to knuckle under to the world Putin's trying to bring in. And I'll give a little quote, the fabulous quote about Lincoln here that explains why he did what he did. Lincoln had conquered the world of silence. He knew that he must stand alone, decide alone, suffer and be blamed alone. He was gentle, unyielding, devious. Free from vanities and illusions, he had time to think. He saw so many levels deep into the meanings and the motives and meanings of life that only his broad humor kept him from cynicism or despair. He knew far too much for comfort. He was a melancholy skeptic who seems to have understood that the world cannot be saved on its own terms, and that to resist one wrong in the realm of politics by the use of force is but to substitute another. Each looked for an easier triumph, he said, referring to the North and the South in his second inaugural address, and a result less fundamental and astounding. The prayers of both could not be answered. That of neither has been answered fully. The Almighty has his own purposes. Nevertheless, Lincoln admitted that political parties must be organized, elections won, malefactors opposed, and sometimes wars fought, not because the results would be what anybody wanted or intended, but because man was not created to bow before iniquity. He must resist, although in the end he will be conquered, if not by the evil he is fighting, then by the evil which rises from the fight itself. It's not going to be a perfect world either, but man was not created to bow before iniquity. Vladimir Putin, the Putinistas, the Russian oligarchs, the American oligarchs who want to copy that whole predatory system. They are the iniquitous. They must be resisted. The human spirit will be destroyed before them, but through their arrogance. We have no choice but to stand up. The outcome might not be the ideal world that we want, but a step toward an elected, not a step, moving that way firmly and getting there is the only way is out of a downward spiritual cycle. The nation state, the system of the semi-anarchic system of competing nation states is iniquitous. It is holding back humanity. We must get rid of it, or it will get rid of us, or what's worth having in us. Okay?